Loudness is the disguise of the weak. True power doesn't shout. It observes, it waits, and it acts with devastating precision. Have you ever noticed how the most unforgettable person in a room is often the quietest? Today, we unlock the 7 Stoic habits that make you silently powerful. We live in an era of unprecedented noise. Every day is a battleground of opinions, outrage, endless notifications, and desperate pleas for attention. Society has conditioned us to believe that to be seen, we must be loud. To be respected, we must be aggressive. To be remembered, we must constantly broadcast our existence to the world. But look closely at the loudest people in the room. What do you see? Beneath the booming voices and the frantic need to dominate the conversation lies a fragile foundation of insecurity. They are loud because they are terrified of being invisible. The Stoics of ancient Greece and Rome understood a fundamental truth that modern society has forgotten. True power is silent. It does not need to announce itself. It is felt. It is a quiet, unshakable gravity that pulls people in, commands respect without a single threat, and remains etched in the memory of everyone who encounters it. To be silently powerful is to be sovereign over your own mind, indifferent to the trivial dramas of the world, and focused entirely on what you can control. How do we cultivate this unforgettable presence? We begin by mastering the first 2 habits of the silently powerful. Habit 1. The art of the pause. Mastering the space between stimulus and response. Picture the Roman Forum in the 1st century BC. It is a hot, dusty theater of politics, a place where egos clash and empires are steered. In the center of this chaos stands Cato the Younger, a Stoic philosopher and statesman known for his impenetrable integrity. He is in the middle of a heated legal dispute with a bitter political rival named Lentulus. Tensions are boiling. Suddenly, in a fit of uncontrollable rage, Lentulus steps forward and spits directly into Cato's face. The crowd gasps, the forum goes dead silent. In the ancient world, as in ours, this is the ultimate disrespect. The natural human reaction, the reaction expected by everyone watching, is immediate, explosive retaliation. Bloodshed would be justified. But Cato does not draw a weapon. He does not scream. He does not even flinch. Slowly, calmly, Cato raises his hand, wipes the saliva from his cheek, looks Lentulus dead in the eyes and says, "I will swear to anyone, Lentulus, that people are wrong to say that you cannot use your mouth." The crowd erupts into laughter. Lentulus is utterly humiliated, reduced to a foolish child throwing a tantrum. Cato, without raising his voice or losing his temper, has completely dominated the situation. This is the power of the pause. The psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor Viktor Frankl profoundly noted, "Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom." Most people have completely eradicated this space. They operate on pure reflex. Someone insults them, they insult back. A car cuts them off in traffic, they slam on the horn. They receive a passive-aggressive email. They fire back a defensive reply. They are puppets, and the rest of the world holds their strings. To be silently powerful, you must reclaim this space. When a crisis hits, when an insult is hurled, when things fall apart, you must train yourself to do something incredibly difficult. Nothing. Just for a moment. You breathe. You observe the emotion rising in your chest, the heat, the anger, the anxiety, and you recognize it as merely a chemical sensation passing through your body. It is not you. In this pause, you strip the event of its emotional weight. You stop asking, "How dare they do this to me?" and start asking, "What is the most rational, effective way to respond?" The person who can pause in the face of chaos is the person who controls the room. While everyone else is panicking, reacting, and exposing their weaknesses, the Stoic stands like a rock in a stormy sea. The waves crash against it, but the rock remains still, and eventually the water settles around it. Practice the art of the pause in your daily life. When someone provokes you, count to 3 before opening your mouth. Let the silence hang in the air. You will be amazed at how often the other person, unsettled by your calm, will stumble over their own words and back down. Habit 2. The economy of words, speaking only with purpose. Zeno of Citium, the founding father of Stoicism, famously observed, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, therefore we should listen twice as much as we speak." In a world where everyone is desperately trying to be heard, silence is a superpower. Think about the dynamics of any group setting, whether it's a corporate boardroom or a social gathering. There is always the talker, the person who fills every silence, interrupts others, and dominates the oxygen in the room. For a few minutes they might seem important, but over time their words lose value. Because they speak constantly, nothing they say is perceived as profound. Their currency is inflated and therefore worthless. Now, consider the quiet person in the corner. They listen intently. They observe body language, power dynamics, and the hidden motives beneath the chatter. They let others exhaust themselves, trying to sound smart. And then, when the room has run out of ideas, the quiet person leans forward and speaks. What happens? Everyone stops. Everyone turns. Everyone listens. Why? Because when someone rarely speaks, their words carry the weight of scarcity. This is the economy of words. The silently powerful person treats their words like gold coins. They do not throw them away on cheap gossip, unnecessary arguments, or boastful monologues. To become unforgettable, you must learn to practice strategic silence. First, stop trying to prove your intelligence. The need to constantly interject and say, "I know," or "I read about that," is a manifestation of ego. Let others have the spotlight. Let them feel important. By doing so, you collect valuable information about who they are. Second, when you do speak, strip away the fluff. Be precise. Speak with intention and finality. If you can say something in 10 words, do not use 50. This habit also applies to how you talk about your plans and goals. Modern culture tells us to manifest by announcing our goals to the world. Stoicism teaches the opposite. Do not tell people what you are going to do. Do it. The philosopher Epictetus warned his students not to talk about their philosophy, but to embody it. Do not explain your philosophy, he said. Embody it. When you keep your ambitions silent, you preserve the energy required to execute them. And when you finally achieve them, your success will speak loudly enough. The combination of pausing before you react and speaking only when necessary builds an aura of unshakable competence. People will begin to project their own ideas of wisdom and strength onto your silence. You become a mirror, reflecting their own insecurities back at them, while you remain cool, collected, and infinitely powerful. If the first 2 habits form the exterior armor of the silently powerful person, controlling how you interact with the world, the next 2 habits build the impenetrable fortress of the mind. Silent power is not an act. It is not a fake persona you put on to manipulate others. If it is not rooted in deep philosophical resilience, the facade will eventually crack under pressure. To be truly unforgettable, you must cultivate a mind that cannot be disturbed by external forces. You must become the master of your internal domain. Habit 3. The radical acceptance of the uncontrollable, the dichotomy of control. There is a story from the ancient world that perfectly encapsulates the absolute, terrifying power of the Stoic mind. Epictetus, before he became one of the most revered philosophers in Rome, was a slave. His master, Epictetus, was a cruel and erratic man who took twisted pleasure in torturing him. One day, for no apparent reason, Epictetus decided to place Epictetus's leg in a metal torture device and slowly begin twisting it. Most men would scream, beg for mercy, or curse the gods. Epictetus did none of these things. He looked down at his leg, looked up at his master, and calmly said, "If you continue to turn that wheel, my leg will break." Enraged by Epictetus's lack of fear, the master turned the wheel harder until there was a loud snap. The bone was shattered. Epictetus, his face pale but his expression completely composed, simply said, "I told you it would break." Epictetus was defeated. He had absolute physical control over Epictetus. He could break his body, he could end his life, but he could not break his mind. Epictetus possessed a power far greater than his master's tyranny, the power of radical acceptance. At the core of Stoicism is the dichotomy of control. As Epictetus would later teach, some things are within our power, and some things are not. It sounds simple, almost too simple. But fully internalizing this truth is the key to invincibility. We waste an agonizing amount of energy fighting reality. We complain about the weather. We rage at the economy. We agonize over the opinions of strangers, and we harbor deep resentment toward the people who have wronged us. We scream at the sky, demanding that the universe bend to our will. This is the absolute opposite of power. It is ultimate weakness, because it places your emotional well-being in the hands of things you cannot control. The silently powerful person operates on a different frequency. They practice amor fati, a love of one's fate. They do not merely tolerate what happens to them, they embrace it. If their flight is cancelled, they do not throw a tantrum at the airport gate. They pull out a book and read. If they lose their job, they do not drown in self-pity. They immediately begin plotting their next career move. If they are betrayed, they do not waste years plotting revenge. They silently cut the traitor out of their life and move forward, grateful for the lesson. When you radically accept what is out of your control, you stop leaking your energy. All the mental horsepower that you use to spend worrying, complaining, and agonizing is suddenly redirected into the present moment. You become a laser beam of focus. People notice this. When disaster strikes a company, a family, or a community, most people look around in a panic, desperate for someone to tell them everything will be okay. If you are the person who simply accepts the new reality and immediately starts asking, "What is our next move?" you become the leader by default. Your silent acceptance of reality makes you a pillar of strength for everyone around you. Habit 4. The discipline of withholding judgment. Objective perception. Our suffering does not come from the events in our lives. It comes from the stories we tell ourselves about those events. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius was arguably the most powerful man in the world. He commanded legions, ruled vast territories, and had the power of life and death over millions. Yet, his private diary, the Meditations, reveals a man who was constantly working to tame his own mind. He developed a specific habit to maintain his emotional equilibrium amidst the backstabbing, corruption, and immense pressure of the imperial court. He called it stripping things of their legend. When a fancy feast was placed before him, he would look at the roasted pig and the vintage wine and remind himself, "This is the dead body of a pig. This is the fermented juice of a grape." When he saw men wearing purple robes, a symbol of supreme status in Rome, he would tell himself, "This is sheep's wool dyed with the blood of a shellfish." He was practicing the discipline of objective perception. He refused to add value judgments, good, bad, beautiful, terrible, to external things. Most of the time, when we feel attacked or slighted, it is because we have added an unnecessary judgment to an objective event. Let's say a colleague walks past your desk without saying hello. The objective event is, a person walked past my desk. That is neutral, but your ego steps in and adds the judgment. He ignored me on purpose. He thinks he's better than me. He is trying to undermine me. Suddenly, you are furious, your heart rate is elevated, and you spend the rest of the day plotting how to get back at him. You have willingly surrendered your peace of mind over a hallucination. The silently powerful person refuses to participate in this self-sabotage. They stick to the facts. They train their minds to see things exactly as they are, without the dramatic overlay. If someone insults them, they do not think, "I have been deeply wronged." They think, "That person made a series of sounds with their vocal cords that indicate they are unhappy. Their unhappiness is their problem, not mine." When you master the discipline of withholding judgment, you become virtually unoffendable. And there is nothing more intimidating and nothing more deeply attractive than a person who cannot be provoked. Bullies, manipulators, and narcissists thrive on getting a reaction. They feed on your emotional outbursts. When they try to provoke you, and you respond with a cool, objective, emotionless stare, you starve them of their oxygen. You leave them disarmed and confused. By withholding judgment, your mind remains clear and unclouded by paranoia or resentment. You see the world exactly as it is, which allows you to navigate it with precision and grace. You become a ghost to the chaotic emotions that enslave normal people. We have established the armor, pausing before reacting and speaking with economy. We have built the fortress, radically accepting reality and stripping away emotional judgments. Now, we must forge the sovereign self. This is the core of your silent power. It is the engine that drives your independence and ensures that your strength is not derived from the applause of the crowd, but from the depths of your own character. Habit 5. Thriving in solitude. Building the inner citadel. In a letter to his friend Lucilius, the Stoic philosopher Seneca issued a profound warning. "I never bring back home the same character that I took abroad with me. Something of that which I have forced to be calm within me is disturbed. Some of the foes that I have routed return again. To consort with the crowd is harmful." Seneca understood a dangerous truth about human nature. The crowd is a contagion. When we are surrounded by the masses, we unconsciously adopt their fears, their anxieties, their desires, and their shallow values. To fit in, we shrink ourselves. We echo opinions we haven't thought through. We buy things we don't need to impress people we don't like, and we slowly lose the sharp edges of our individuality. Look at the modern world. People are absolutely terrified of being alone. If a person is left in a room with nothing but their own thoughts for 5 minutes, they will instinctively reach for their smartphone to numb the silence. They constantly need background music, podcasts, text messages, and social media feeds to drown out the quiet. Why? Because in the silence, they are forced to confront themselves. They are forced to look at the emptiness of their own minds. To be silently powerful, you must flip this paradigm completely. You must not merely tolerate solitude. You must actively seek it, embrace it, and thrive in it. You must build what the Stoics called the inner citadel, a fortress of the mind where you can retreat at any time to find peace, clarity, and renewal. Imagine Marcus Aurelius, the emperor of Rome, in the bitter, freezing forests of Germania. He is leading a brutal military campaign against barbarian tribes. His days are filled with the scent of blood, the cries of dying men, the pressure of commanding legions, and the constant threat of assassination or betrayal. It is a world of unimaginable stress, but at night, when the camp goes quiet, the emperor retreats to his tent. He lights a single oil lamp. He does not call for entertainers. He does not drown his stress in wine. He sits down with a piece of parchment and writes. He writes to himself. He examines his soul. He reminds himself of the shortness of life, the insignificance of fame, and his duty to be a good man. In the midst of war, he finds perfect, absolute stillness inside his own mind. He retreats to his inner citadel. When you learn to thrive in solitude, a profound transformation occurs. You stop needing people. This does not mean you become antisocial or cruel. It means you no longer depend on the external world for your emotional stability or your sense of self-worth. You are no longer a beggar asking the world for validation, attention, or love. You generate those things internally. There is an incredible, undeniable power in a person who does not need you. When you are perfectly comfortable sitting in silence, you create a gravitational pull. People are drawn to those who are self-sufficient. In relationships, in business, in negotiations, the person who needs the other least is the person who holds all the power. If you are willing to walk away, if you are perfectly happy returning to your own company, you can never be manipulated or coerced. Practicing this habit requires discipline. You must intentionally carve out periods of sensory deprivation. Take a walk without your phone or headphones. Sit in a room for 20 minutes in absolute silence and just observe the chaotic chatter of your own brain. At first, it will be uncomfortable. Your mind will rebel. It will beg for dopamine, for distraction, for noise. But if you hold the line, the waters of your mind will eventually settle. The mud will sink to the bottom, and clarity will emerge. This clarity is where your silent power is forged. In solitude, you figure out who you actually are, stripped of the expectations of your parents, your boss, and society. You develop your own moral compass. You clarify your mission. And when you finally emerge from your solitude and step back into the world, you will not be swayed by the madness of the crowd. You will walk through life with the calm, quiet confidence of a king or queen who knows exactly what territory they rule. When others are frantic, seeking approval, and lost in the noise, you will stand rooted in the earth. You will be unforgettable, because in a world of copies, you have done the lonely work of becoming an original. We have forged the inner armor. We have built the citadel of the mind and learned to thrive in the quiet isolation of our own sovereignty. But we do not live entirely in our own minds. We are social creatures, and we must eventually act in the physical world. The question then becomes, how does the silently powerful person navigate their ambitions, their work, and their interactions with society? The modern world offers a very specific, very loud blueprint for success. It tells us that doing the work is only half the battle. The other half is making sure absolutely everyone knows you did it. We live in the era of the personal brand, the humble brag, the corporate visibility strategy, and the performative hustle. People document their every waking moment, broadcasting their early morning workouts, their late-night grind, and even their philanthropic deeds to a digital audience. In the workplace, we are told to manage up, to CC the boss on every minor email, so our effort is logged. In relationships, We post our grand romantic gestures online to prove how much we care. The underlying psychological disease of our time is the terrifying belief that an action has no value unless it is witnessed, liked, and validated by others. We have become a society utterly terrified of being great in the dark. But the Stoics recognized that this insatiable hunger for applause is a fatal vulnerability. If you need the crowd to applaud your good deeds, your hard work, or your success, then the crowd owns you. Your self-worth becomes a hostage to their attention span. You are no longer a master of your fate. You are a court jester performing for the approval of strangers, constantly checking the scoreboard to see if you matter. Habit 6. The power of invisible action. Consider the extraordinary story of Cleanthes, the second head of the Stoic school in Athens. Before he became a revered philosopher, Cleanthes was a heavily muscled, impoverished former boxer. He arrived in Athens with nothing but a few coins to his name, drawn by a burning desire to study philosophy under the great teacher Zeno. Because he was utterly destitute, he had to work to survive. But he also needed his days completely free to attend Zeno's lectures and engage in philosophical debates. So Cleanthes made a choice. He found a job drawing water from the deep wells for the lush, wealthy gardens of Athens. It was grueling, back-breaking, utterly unglamorous labor, and he did it entirely in the dead of night. For years, while the rest of the city slept, Cleanthes hauled heavy buckets in the darkness, his hands blistered and his muscles aching. He slept only a few hours, so that by sunrise he could wash the dirt from his hands and sit calmly at the feet of his teacher. He never complained to his wealthy classmates. He never played the martyr. He never used his exhaustion as an excuse, nor did he boast about his extraordinary work ethic to win Zeno's favor. He simply did the work in the dark and studied in the light. Eventually, the magistrates of Athens noticed this hulking man who attended lectures all day, but had no apparent means of income. Suspecting him of theft or illegal activities, how else could a man survive without working during the day? They summoned Cleanthes before the high court to explain how he fed himself. Cleanthes did not argue. He did not give a grandiose speech about his dedication. He simply called 2 witnesses to the stand, the gardener he drew water for in the middle of the night, and the poor woman who sold him his meager daily rations of crushed meal. The court was so stunned by his quiet, grueling dedication and his complete lack of desire to show it off that they voted on the spot to give him a massive sum of money from the public treasury. True to his nature, Cleanthes refused the gold. Cleanthes possessed a devastatingly rare kind of power. He did not need his virtue to be seen to know that it was real. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations about this exact phenomenon. He observed nature and realized that the highest forms of existence do their work without demanding a receipt. A vine produces grapes and asks for nothing more than the joy of producing them. A horse runs, a dog hunts, a bee makes honey, and a man does a good deed. He does not shout it from the rooftops, but moves on to the next deed, just as the vine moves on to produce another cluster of grapes in season. The emperor then asked a penetrating, beautiful question. Does an emerald lose its quality if it is not praised? The answer, of course, is no. A counterfeit diamond needs the perfect lighting and a great sales pitch to convince people it has value. But a true emerald is brilliant and flawless, whether it is locked in a pitch-black vault for a century or displayed on a king's crown. Its value is intrinsic. It does not beg to be looked at. It simply is. When you practice the art of invisible action, you cultivate an intrinsic, unshakable value within yourself. You stop working for the promotion, the likes, or the pat on the back, and you start working out of a deep, uncompromising sense of personal excellence. How do you apply this today? Start small. Do the dishes at home without mentioning it to your partner. Complete a massive project at work and let the results speak, without reminding everyone of the overtime you put in. Give to a charity completely anonymously. When you achieve a major milestone, resist the burning urge to immediately post a celebratory, self-congratulatory essay on social media. Just sit with the victory. Let it be yours, and yours alone. Paradoxically, by hiding your efforts, you become infinitely more magnetic. People are exhausted by those who constantly sell themselves. The world is full of loud amateurs. When people finally encounter a quiet professional, someone who produces undeniable massive results but actively deflects the spotlight, it creates an aura of profound mystery and strength. They watch you and wonder, if they are this calm and humble about such a massive achievement, what else are they capable of? How deep does this ocean actually go? The silently powerful person treats their ambitions like a hidden forge deep in the forest. People might hear the distant, rhythmic ringing of the hammer. They might see the faint, glowing embers of the fire through the trees. But you do not invite them in to watch you sweat. You do not ask them to praise your effort. You stay in the shadows, hammering away at your craft, and you only step out when the masterpiece is entirely finished. When your actions speak for themselves, you do not need words. Your excellence becomes an undeniable physical force in the world. People will project their admiration onto your humility, and your reputation will build itself, not through cheap marketing or loud boasting, but through the heavy, undeniable gravity of your deeds. You become an emerald, radiating a silent, unbothered, and unforgettable brilliance. We arrive at the final habit, the ultimate crucible of Stoic philosophy. If the previous 6 habits teach you how to live, this final habit teaches you how to look at life itself. It is the absolute, foundational source of all silent power. Without it, your calm is just a temporary mood. Your strength is just a fragile house of cards waiting for the wind to blow. This habit is what separates the average person, consumed by the petty anxieties of daily life, from the unforgettable soul who walks through the world with the gravity of a titan. Habit 7. The constant companion, memento mori. Imagine the streets of Rome during a military triumph. A victorious general has returned from conquering a foreign land. He is riding through the city in a massive, gilded chariot pulled by 4 white horses. Hundreds of thousands of citizens line the streets, screaming his name, throwing flowers, and treating him as if he were a living god. He is at the absolute pinnacle of human achievement. Power, wealth, fame, and glory are entirely his. But behind him, standing in the same chariot, is a lowly slave. As the crowd roars and the general basks in his supreme glory, the slave leans forward and continuously whispers a single phrase into the general's ear. Respis poste. Hominem te esse memento. Memento mori. Look behind you. Remember you are a man. Remember you must die. This was not a punishment. It was a profound, necessary grounding. The Romans understood that when a human being is elevated to the status of a god, they lose their mind. They lose their perspective. The whisper of the slave was an anchor to reality. Memento mori. Remember death. It is perhaps the most misunderstood concept in all of Stoicism. Modern society views the contemplation of death as morbid, depressing, and dark. We do everything in our power to hide from it. We bury our elderly in sterile facilities. We use clinical words like passed away, and we obsess over anti-aging creams and longevity hacks. We live our lives under the collective delusion that we have an infinite amount of time. Because we believe we have endless time, we waste it on things of astonishing triviality. We hold grudges for decades. We spend days stewing over a sarcastic comment from a co-worker. We stay in miserable jobs, toxic relationships, and unfulfilling routines because we tell ourselves, "I will change my life tomorrow. I will be happy later." The Stoic knows that tomorrow is the greatest lie ever told. You are not guaranteed this evening. You are not even guaranteed the next breath. Seneca wrote brilliantly on this subject in his essay on the shortness of life. You live as if you were destined to live forever. No thought of your frailty ever enters your head. Of how much time has already gone by, you take no heed. You squander time as if you drew from a full and abundant supply, though all the while that day, which you bestow on some person or thing, is perhaps your last. To be silently powerful, you must make death your constant, invisible companion. You must wake up every morning and look at the ceiling, realizing with a jolt of pure clarity that your heart could simply stop beating before sunset. How does this make you powerful? Because death is the ultimate perspective giver. It is the great incinerator of nonsense. When you truly internalize the fragility of your existence, the things that used to terrify you suddenly become laughable. Are you afraid to speak up in a meeting because you might sound foolish? Memento mori. You and everyone in that room will be dust in a blink of cosmic time. Their temporary opinion of you means absolutely nothing. Are you paralyzed by the fear of failing at a new business venture? Memento mori. The worst that can happen is you go bankrupt, but the grave takes both the billionaire and the beggar. The fear of death is the mother of all fears. When you look death in the eye and accept it, every other fear vanishes. You become untouchable. This is the secret to that quiet, unshakable aura that makes a person unforgettable. The silently powerful person does not get dragged into petty arguments, drama, or office politics, not because they are arrogant, but because they quite literally do not have the time. They view their energy as a rapidly draining hourglass, and they refuse to spend their remaining grains of sand on things that do not matter. This acute awareness of mortality also transforms how you interact with others. Think about how you talk to people when you are distracted. You look at your phone, you nod along, your eyes glaze over. But imagine if you genuinely believed that this conversation might be the absolute last time you ever speak to this person. Imagine if you knew that when they walked out the door, you would never see their face again. How would you listen? You would hang on their every word. You would stare directly into their eyes. You would give them the totality of your presence. This is what makes the Stoic unforgettable. Because they are hyper-aware of the fleeting nature of life, they do not merely exist in a room. They are alive in it. Their presence is heavy, intense, and deeply engaging. When a person who has made peace with death looks at you, you feel seen in a way that is incredibly rare in the modern world. They are not looking past you to the next distraction. They are completely locked in to the miracle of the present moment. People are drawn to this energy. They might not be able to articulate what it is, but they can feel the difference. They feel the depth of a soul that has stripped away the illusions of infinity. In a world full of people frantically chasing shadows, trying to accumulate wealth, fame, and status to build a monument to their own ego, the silently powerful person stands apart. They know that all statues eventually crumble, and all names are eventually forgotten. Therefore, they do not act for the history books. They act for the beauty of the present. They are kind because kindness is good. They are brave because courage is right. They are silent because they have nothing to prove. The 7 habits of the silently powerful are not a set of behavioral tricks or psychological hacks to manipulate people into liking you. They are a complete restructuring of the human soul. They are the pathway from the chaotic, reactive animal mind to the sovereign, unshakable realm of the philosopher. You begin by mastering the space between stimulus and response, choosing silence over the frantic need to react. You preserve the value of your words, speaking only when your voice improves the silence. You fortify your mind by radically accepting everything outside of your control, turning fate into fuel. You strip the world of its emotional judgments, seeing reality with cold, crystal clarity. You build an inner citadel, learning to not just survive, but to thrive in the lonely, beautiful depths of your own solitude. You take action in the shadows, letting the undeniable weight of your results speak for you, demanding no applause. And finally, you walk hand in hand with your own mortality, using the shortness of life to burn away everything trivial, cowardly, and false. When you forge these habits into the iron of your daily life, you will no longer need to shout to be heard. You will no longer need to demand respect. You will become a quiet force of nature. And long after the loud, the boastful, and the desperate have faded from memory, you will remain unshakable, sovereign, unforgettable. True power isn't about dominating others. It's about conquering yourself. By mastering the pause, speaking with purpose, accepting fate, withholding judgment, thriving in solitude, acting in silence, and remembering your mortality, you become an unshakable force. Which of these 7 Stoic habits will you start practicing today? Let me know in the comments below. If this video brought you value, hit the like button, share it with someone who needs to hear this, and subscribe to the channel for more ancient wisdom applied to modern life. Stay strong and stay stoic.